This episode contains mature content and includes discussion of intimate partner violence. Viewer discretion is advised. If you've been through something unthinkable, if you've ever been told not to share your story, to suck it up, buttercup, or thought no one would believe me anyway, if you're still here fighting to figure out what comes next, then you have a story the world needs to hear, and we want to be the ones to help you share it. My name is Joe.
And my name is Sam.
And we are Project Tell Your Story here with Morgan.
Hello.
Hi, Morgan. How are you?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Doing pretty good. Ready to chat and get started on your interview?
Definitely.
Definitely. Okay, so Morgan, tell us about yourself. Just a couple little things about you.
Well, I'm Morgan. I the biggest thing about me that I tell everyone is I play the violin. I've been playing for 10 years and 8 months. And I've been working on composing music.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you just started a YouTube account, huh?
A couple months ago, yeah.
Yeah. Morgatones for anybody who hasn't heard it yet, go take a listen.
Yeah, Morgan, what do
There's a
you
few
do?
pieces.
Yeah, what do you post on YouTube on your Morgatones page?
So right now I have an introduction video of my story of how I started playing the violin and my progress. And then I also have two other pieces that I composed and I perform on my own violin.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine how hard it would be to compose music.
It's
So,
a lot of work. It's hard, but I love it.
that's good. Well, it's not work if you love it, right?
Yeah, you could say that.
She's like, it's still work. I'd imagine.
I feel that.
Yeah, I'd imagine
Yeah.
it's a lot of work. Like, especially just here, like doing our podcast episodes, how much editing goes into each episode just to make sure that we take out all the ums and as many likes as we can and things. And I'd imagine it's very similar hours and hours of editing if you're putting together a compositional musical piece. Like that would be a lot of work.
Yeah, one video is 3.5 minutes long and it took me 2.5 hours to edit. So can't imagine these 2-hour episodes, how long those take.
Days.
It's a full-time job.
But luckily there's two of us, so we work together on it, which makes it a lot easier.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, we are that's one thing I think listeners and people who get on to come on to be interviewed can appreciate. Like, we're not a production company. We are a two-woman show just out here trying to make the world a better place. So thank you for trusting us with your story. And as, a fellow content creator, like I'm sure, you know that a lot of work goes into it. And so we all just want to do a really good job and make sure that we give everybody's story like the best version. We can put out the best version of their story. So thank you for trusting us with that.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, we're super excited to hear your story today. But before we get into that, just to break the ice and make everybody a little bit more comfortable, we did prepare a special question for you, Morgan, because we know that you like to make some crazy food combinations. So our icebreaker question for you today is, what is a food combination that you enjoy that others just cannot get behind or they think it's gross?
I would say either ketchup and peaches or fry sauce and peas.
Oh, I was thinking you were gonna say like ranch and potatoes or something, but
Oh, I thought that was normal.
ketchup and
Ketchup and
peaches?
peaches? Oh my
Do you actually like that, or do you just eat it because other people say it's gross?
No, I like it.
I guess don't knock it till you try it, but I don't
I'm
know.
knocking it.
Or fry sauce and corn. That's also good.
I feel like that's not as bad. What was the other one you said? Fry sauce and peas?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's not as bad either. The ketchup and peaches. That one throws me off a little bit.
It's
I think
good.
I'll stick to my cottage cheese and peaches, but good on you.
I don't like cottage cheese.
I feel like I just blacked
Sam,
out.
you okay?
No. That's the most dramatic thing I've ever heard on this podcast. I eat peaches and ketchup.
It's good.
Uh,
You gotta try it.
I need you to know, listeners, one thing we did not say in the beginning was, how do we know Morgan? She's actually our youngest sister. And I need you to know, I think I might have just been like, where did she come from? Is she actually related?
You know what though? I knew that this was going to be a good question for her.
That was a good question.
I wasn't expecting such a bizarre answer, but I knew you were going to say something a little bit bizarre. So there we go.
I do like my different food combinations.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is wild. All right, I'm back. I just think I'm gonna the whole time. I'm not gonna be able to get that out of my head. Oh.
Morgan's going to be like, and then the worst thing in my life happened. And Sam's like, what? You dipped your peaches in ketchup?
Wait, did your peaches in mustard?
Ew. I don't like mustard that much.
What about peaches and fry sauce?
Never tried it.
Mm.
Hmm.
I don't feel like that would be good either, but I feel like that's something that you would do.
Yeah, I can see myself doing that. I love fry sauce.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know how I'm feeling right now. How are you feeling about telling your story here today?
I'm not gonna lie. I'm nervous, but that's okay.
Yeah. I feel like it's pretty normal to be nervous, especially if it's something that you haven't really talked about before, but then also, this is going on the internet, so it's okay to be a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
So, what would you say are your biggest fears about telling your story and putting it out there?
Uh, honestly, just having the people involved see it.
Yeah. Are you just worried about like them reaching out to you or worried about what they're going to think or what makes you nervous about that?
Probably reaching out. They've reached out a few times before, so
Yeah.
What do you think would happen if you weren't worried about them reaching out? How do you think you would approach this story if you weren't worried at all?
I honestly can't imagine the life without me being worried. I'm a little bit of an overthinker, so I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
it's
fair.
kind of wild, right? A wild thought of like, but I'm afraid. Well, what would you do if you weren't? How do you imagine that? But the good thing about bravery is it isn't doing something without fear. It's doing something afraid. So let's do this. You're here, you're worried. They might reach out. That is a strong possibility. But we're doing it brave because we're doing it afraid.
And you're
That's
not
awesome.
doing it alone. So,
And you're not doing it alone. No, I'm proud of you. And we're going to talk about your story now. You can share whatever feels right to you. You don't need to go into any details that feel unsafe or too raw. Your voice and your pace totally lead this because this is your story. We are going to change the names of anyone you mention who isn't in this interview. And so from this point forward, we'll be using pseudonyms for every name except for Morgan. So, Morgan, you have another person in this story who's going to be a character in this story. What would you like to refer to them as? What pseudonym, fake name did you pick?
I picked Billy.
Billy. And can you tell us why you picked Billy?
Well, just going back to childhood, like, books, children's books, a lot of the bullies in those books, the bullies' names are Billy. So, why not?
I like it.
Yeah, I like that.
Billy the Bully.
Yeah, putting Billy
Yeah.
on blast.
Putting Billy the Bully on blast. Ba-ba-ba-ba.
Oh no.
What is that called? Alliteration? Yeah. Putting Billy the Bully on blast. Alliteration at its finest.
Yeah, so like Sam said, this is your story. So we want you to tell us whatever you feel comfortable with sharing. However, just personally, as your sister and also as a co-host on this show, we are providing you with this space to tell your story. So my hope for you is that you don't let that fear of what they're going to say, what they're going to think affect how you share your story because this isn't their story. It's not Billy's story, it's not his family's story, it's your story. So even if they're going to get upset about whatever you're going to say, as long as you feel comfortable sharing that and as long as that's your truth, then we want to hear it. So whatever you want to say, please don't feel like you can't share your story out of fear because like Sam said, it's about being brave and it's about sharing your story and putting that out there for the world. So, yeah, that's just my hope for you. So, when we had talked to you earlier, when you mentioned that you wanted to come on our show and do this interview, you kind of talked a little bit about you wanted to mention a relationship that you were in, an abusive relationship that you were in. So, this relationship was with Billy, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us how that relationship started? How did you guys meet?
It started out when we got put into an orchestra class. We met in 6th grade with over, I think it was 108 kids in one orchestra class. And I sat in the back with a friend that I knew, and what I didn't realize was Billy's cousin. So Billy came over and sat next to her, and first glance I had a huge crush on him. Uh, but me being an introvert that I am, I didn't say anything, and when Billy and I were chatting later on, he also felt the same way.
So you were in high school at the time?
It was
Is that
sixth
right?
grade, so it'd have been middle school.
Oh, middle school. Okay, so you guys met in middle school orchestra class. When did you start dating?
Unofficially, we became like really good friends in 8th grade. We had a science class together that we got sat next to each other, and normally this science teacher would get upset at students for being loud and disruptive, but he encouraged us to start dating. So we were the most disruptive kids in the class, and he didn't care. So we officially started dating 4 years after that. So I was a freshman in college.
And did you guys go to the same college?
Eventually, we were at the same college, but at the time that we started dating, he was still living at home with his parents, saving up money for college.
Okay.
Got you.
So you were long distance at the beginning.
Yeah, we were long distance for 8 months. When it started, when we first became official, I would go up and visit him probably about once a month, and I would stay the night at his parents' house. And then I eventually convinced Billy to move down to Logan, which is where I was going to school. And he, I went up and helped him pack up his bedroom, which was a little chaotic, not gonna lie to you. And then I helped him move down, and he moved down August of last year, so 2024.
And um did the dynamic of the relationship change after he moved and you guys were no longer long distance?
I mean, after any long distance relationship, I feel like it definitely feels different. For the first little bit, it kind of feels like you're on a vacation and it doesn't feel real. It feels like you're going up to visit him or he's coming down to visit you. But after a while, it felt pretty normal.
Yeah. So kind of like a honeymoon phase period.
Yeah.
So then once he started, when he moved down and you guys were in the same town and you were going to the same college. So now you're no longer long distance. Were there signs early on that things weren't right, or did it take a really long time for it to start to feel not right?
It definitely took a long time. At the beginning, everything was fine. Like I mentioned before, he moved down in August. Things didn't start really taking a big turn until probably around Thanksgiving. And that's kind of where it slowly started. And it wasn't really a big turn, it's just slow progression up until it wasn't.
So about 3-ish months after he moved down is when things started to feel different.
Yes.
So can you tell us those first, like what was it that was feeling different? Was he acting differently? Was he just really withdrawn? Like what was going on?
So there's a little story kind of to that, and I'll explain that. When he first moved down, he started going to school and he had no problems going to class. And we would stay the night at each other's apartments. And um, I would hear his alarm go off for school. So I'd wake him up because he doesn't wake up to his alarms. I would wake him up and be like, "Hey, are you going to class?" And he would tell me yes or no. And it got to a point where it was only no. And I'm not Billy's parent. I'm not Billy's babysitter. So I was like, okay, turned off the alarm, moved on. But after a while, he stopped doing his homework and ended up not doing very good in college. And it kind of escalated once he ended up lying to his mom about his grades, and his mom was filling out insurance stuff and needed his GPA. And that's when it took a turn because they blamed his grades on me because I didn't force him to go to class.
Like his parents were blaming you.
Yeah, his mom sent me a pretty nasty text saying Billy is down for school and needs to focus on his stuff, and you need to let Billy do his own thing. Um, when Billy ended up talking to his mom, I left the room, uh, and I'm pretty sure, I don't know for positive, but based off of how things kind of took a turn, I'm pretty sure Billy told his mom something that wasn't true, and she blamed it all on me, and yeah.
So Billy's mom wasn't upset at him at all. She just put everything on you because you weren't babysitting him and forcing him to go to class and forcing him to do his homework.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And then,
then, oh, go on, Joe.
oh, I was just going to ask, you said that you're pretty sure that he had lied to her. What what makes you feel like he had lied to her, and what do you think that he had said?
Based off of like his mom's reaction, it kind of made it seem like I was, because she had told me that he felt like I was holding him in a prison and kind of holding him hostage. So based off of that, it kind of made me feel like he told his mom that I wouldn't allow him to go to class. Like I held him back. I shut the door on him so he couldn't leave. And yeah,
I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh. That's just ridiculous.
you're good. It is.
I
It
know.
is
Yeah,
definitely
because
stupid.
you're a. I don't know if you can tell from this video, but Morgan's a pretty intimidating person. So, you said like things, so things didn't start to before he started to kind of do poorly in school. There wasn't a point that you thought, or were there points at all in your relationship that between like you two that kind of started to feel off?
No, it was fine. And that really wasn't like the major thing that set him off into turning him abusive. Um, there's more to that that I will explain later, but he just didn't make a correct choice in his life with one, not going to class, and two, lying to his mom and about school and possibly about me. And it kind of turned their whole family against me. So, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You said that there's a point later on where you feel like things took a turn in your relationship. Um, at what point did you start to notice that there was something like the way he was treating you rather than just what he was telling other people?
Like at what point, because you said, oh, we were fine, like we were totally great. He moved down. There was a little bit of the honeymoon phase. Was there a point at all where you were like, oh, I don't like how you're treating me?
That at that point it was probably around the new year, so January of 25, which was also the time that his sister moved down to Logan.
Okay. So things started to kind of feel negative for you. Joe and I kind of lived this experience with you. So, in just guiding, kind of in getting into that story a little bit, we're going to start with what you had experienced in kind of the early days of your relationship and really throughout the end is what is called psychological aggression, but it's more commonly known as emotional abuse.
Yeah, so I don't know if you've seen my episode on the intimate partner violence talking about the abuse that I went through, but I feel like it's really common to feel like how did this happen to me and how did I let this happen? And I that's even something that I've shared the way that I felt, but it's really not an uncommon feeling to have. That's most victims of abuse will have that feeling, whether it's emotional, physical, sexual. It's how did I let this happen to me? Um, so there is a study that was reported by the National Institute of Health and Domestic Abuse as that psychological aggression or emotional abuse by an intimate partner was reported by 48.4% of women and 48.8% of men. So almost 50% of women and 50% of men have reported emotional abuse by an intimate partner. And it's also reported that emotional abuse is the most common form of intimate partner violence. And a lot of times, that's even how, like, the more, I don't want to say more aggressive, but physical, sexual, a lot of those things come after emotional abuse. That's usually kind of where it starts, and then it will progress into other things. So I did want to go into some examples of emotional abuse, and then you can tell us if this is something that you had experienced in your relationship with Billy. Is that does that work for you?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So the first one is verbal abuse, which it contains yelling, insults, name calling, or even just putting you down. Is that something that you experienced with him?
He did all those things. The biggest thing was shaming. I had kind of told him a little bit of personal things. Okay, not a little bit, a lot of personal things that not very many people know. And at that time, I trusted him with it. And over time, he held that over my head like I was a little kid and trying to get a piece of candy. Um, he just held it over my head, and every time that he was mad at me, he would use that to shame me and embarrass me because he would talk about it with his family, with my grandparents, with my parents, with people in public.
Do you feel comfortable giving us a specific example of that? An example of saying, I told him something personally, held it over my head like I was a little kid with a piece of candy. Can you explain kind of what you mean by that?
One of the things that I told him, just because I tell a lot of people that I'm close to, is I have a hard time. This has nothing to do with Billy, but I just have a hard time eating in front of people. And I told Billy that at first because he was wondering why, when we were going out on dates or anything like that, I wouldn't eat. I would get it to go and eat it later when I was alone. And at first he was fine with that. And you guys have witnessed that as well. But over time, he would start shaming me for it because, when you go out on a date, most of the time the guy pays. And he was just worried that I was just going to throw it out when he wasn't looking. And that's understandable, but he doesn't need to be shaming me for it, making me feel a lot more uncomfortable than I already am with eating around others. And he would start fat shaming me once I started getting comfortable with eating around him. So it just, yeah.
What do you
Fat
mean?
shaming you, like, what did he say?
He was just mentioning about how I need to stop eating so much and how I need to work out more because I am growing a food baby, quote unquote. Um, and I'm getting to be obese. So,
Are you kidding me?
Ooh, again, this is a very small computer screen. You can't really tell if you don't know Morgan. This is how thin she is. Like,
Yeah,
this is wild.
literally fuck him.
Yeah, this is, he is, you are so tiny. And also, I'm not trying to body shame you and being like, you're way too thin, eat a burger. Like, that's not what I'm saying. You're beautiful.
no,
You are absolutely beautiful the way you are.
thank you.
And you are so far from obese, or you need to
And
stop eating so much.
and you know what? Even if you weren't teeny tiny, that's still not something that you say to somebody.
Agreed.
There's a difference between like, hey, I've noticed that you've been putting on a little bit of weight, you know, let's go to the gym together, let's eat healthier, or whatever. I mean, maybe I would still take offense to that, but I feel like if you can say things out of love to people to be like, "Hey, I've noticed this. Let's let me help you." You know? But for him
Yeah,
to say that you're obese and that you have a food baby, literally fuck him.
agree. Another thing was he was wanting me to go to the gym with him after a little bit. And I personally, I don't like gyms. Like, I like working out, but if there's so many people there, I'm self-conscious and I just don't like other people watching me. So I have an at-home gym where I'm at now, and I have a fairly private gym where I lived beforehand. And I would go there, and one or two people's fine, but you know how busy other gyms get, like Planet Fitness, like there's hundreds of people in there.
Yeah.
No. So he, over time, just started kind of telling me again the fat shame, and he just kind of manipulated me into thinking that the reason why this relationship got to where it was because of the fat shame and other factors leading to it.
So basically, he said that the reason why your relationship didn't work out is because you were fat.
One of the reasons.
Oh my God.
Okay.
I might have to unblock his number so I can just be like, fuck you.
Uh,
Block. Um, Another thing that we talked about verbal abuse. Another thing that is an example of emotional abuse is intimidation. So, intimidation would be using threats of physical harm to himself, threatening to harm you, threatening to harm any pets, or destroying property, or just kind of creating a generally fearful environment. Did any of those things happen in your relationship, and can you give us examples? If so.
the entire from January until we broke up was all of it. I'll kind of give you a back history of kind of where things took a turn in January, and hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense. So I don't even remember what the fight it was about, but we had a fight one day. We were at my apartment, and he got mad at me, and he said, well, we were having a disagreement, and he walked out of the room, and I kind of got upset. I said, hey, we're having a conversation. As of right now, neither of us are yelling or screaming or doing anything like that. Like, please stay in the room so we can talk and work this out. And he turned to me and shouted, saying, and I quote, it's either I walk out of this room or I hurt you. Which I didn't realize at the time, but I talked to you guys, and you guys had told me that basically means he's thought about hurting me before. And
Yeah, 100%.
that's really what scared me, because I did a little bit of research, and it starts out as those words, and then it turns into pushing, and then it turns into quote unquote holding me hostage, not letting me leave, and beating me. And like, you guys were concerned of me not making it out alive. And that's when I kind of realized this relationship needs to end.
Yeah. Yeah. So specifically, you said he started out with, if I don't leave, I'm going to hurt you, which, yeah, was those words are very telling. And were there any points that he did put his hands on you? That he pushed you, hit you, anything like that?
Yeah, there was a time where I was just having a really hard mental day. I was not wanting to be here anymore. And instead of like talking me through it, being calm and gentle, which is what at that time, what I needed, he yelled at me and pushed me across the room. And I tripped. I didn't fall, but I tripped, and it kind of sent me into a panic attack. And when I have those kind of panic attacks, my jaw locks and I start hyperventilating, to where at a point I become kind of paralyzed and I can't talk. I really can't move. So I was just sitting there upset that he pushed me. Like, that's not okay. Um,
Yeah.
and I finally kind of, after a few minutes, I came out of it and I just fell on the floor and started crying. And that's when I called you, Sam, and you talked me through it. And at that time, that's what I needed. I needed someone to help me. And after you and I got off the phone, after I kind of calmed down, him and I talked about it. And he was like, why did you call your sister and talk to her rather than talking to me? And I was just like, I don't feel comfortable talking to you. Like, you shame me for it, and then you, like, if I talk to you about something that I don't like that you did, you get upset and turn it around and make it my fault. And it's like a story on that, turning it around back on my fault. was in May. It was his birthday. And my seasonal job for the DNR, it started and they wanted to start on his birthday. So I went up and at that time we were watching my other sister's dog and I was like, okay, you have the day off. And I've mentioned to him before multiple times, can you at least let this dog out every few hours to go to the bathroom, make sure she has food, make sure she has water, make sure she's okay, maybe play with her so she doesn't get sad. And he's like, yeah, I can do that. So the time came to where I was at work and my shift was 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. and it was about 11 a.m. And I messaged him saying, hey, how's it going? And he's like, good. I've been with my family since about 7. And I was like, have you let this dog out? And he was like, no, she'll be fine. And I said, you agreed to let her out. Can you please go let her out? Can you please go make sure she's okay? And he was like, I'm with my family right now. I can't. And I said, what are you doing right now? He's like, we're at the store, but we're getting ready to head back. And I said, okay, my sister's house is on the way back from the store. Can you please just stop by, go let her out, and then you can go on with your day and I'll let her out when I get home. And he's like, I can ask. I'm like, you're an adult. You don't need to ask. Like, did you drive? He's like, yeah, I drove my sister and I, but I don't know if my sister will let me. And I was like, why won't she let you? And he's like, well, my sister wants to hang out with my parents as well because his parents came down and visited. And I was like, it's not going to take any longer than 5 minutes at max. Just go let her out to pee, give her food and water, and leave. And we had a big argument. I ended up crying at work. I had to go in the bathroom, get myself cleaned up so my coworkers and my boss wouldn't see me. And we got home later that night. We had a fight for 2 hours, and he told me I was overreacting. He told me that I ruined his birthday because I held him accountable for letting this dog out. And I got mad at him. And I said, that dog is my responsibility while my sisters are gone. If anything happens to that dog, it's on me. It's not on you. You won't get in trouble. It's on me. And I love and care for that dog. Like, if you asked me to go and watch your dog while you were at work and I told you no, you would be upset too. So you need to understand where I'm coming from. And you need to do things when you've already said yes. Like, if you weren't going to, if you weren't planning on it, then don't tell me yes and I'll figure something else out.
Right.
Which I feel like is pretty bare minimum. But yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I understand that his family was in town and that he had plans, but he should have communicated that to you beforehand so you could make other arrangements because when you were at this job, you were out of town, correct? So you couldn't just run home and let the dog out.
Yeah, my work was over an hour away. And I knew beforehand that his family was going to be in town. And I said, even with your family in town, are you okay letting this dog out? And he was like, yeah. So he agreed to it. He just didn't follow through.
Yeah. I think listening to that, right, that's a pretty, well, a pretty shitty boyfriend thing to do, right? Doesn't necessarily fall into the realm of like, okay, well, that wasn't emotional abuse. It's just like he wasn't great. He made you a promise. He broke the promise. Um, but later you had called me and you had said, I'm really frustrated. And when I talked to him and we had this fight because he promised me he would take the dog out and I called him and then he never did take the dog out and I had to go home and the dog had been all, all by herself all day long. So I let her out and you said I called him and I was really frustrated. You're like, I told him that I I was upset that he had broken a promise, really, because you guys had used the word promise. I promise I'll let her out. And what really came into that was, I mean, our next kind of bullet of like manipulation, right, is using tactics like gaslighting or calling you crazy for calling him out on his behavior, right? So basically being like very casually cruel in the name of being honest. Did you ever feel like he said things to you when you did say, "Hey, we had a fight, and can you tell us about, you saying, "Hey, we had a fight and this is how you made me feel," and how did he respond to that?
Just leading back to his birthday. We talked about it. Like, I kind of told him, I was like, hey, I don't like it when people lie to me. I don't like it when people break promises that we have set and we've both agreed on. And that kind of ruined our trust for a little bit. Like, you're going to have to work to get that trust back. I haven't lost my full trust, but I'm just letting you know that I'm not going to be as open to talk to you about things. I'm not going to be as open to ask you to do me favors because of what you did. And he started crying, and he was just like, well, I didn't do anything wrong, and you were just overreacting. And I even talked to my sister about it, and she thought you were overacting too, and you should be the one apologizing to me. Like, I don't feel like I did anything wrong, so I don't need to apologize. And I asked him, I said, okay, what in your mind, what did I do wrong? Because I'm not fully understanding. And he's like, well, you made a big scene in front of my family. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry for making that big scene, but I wasn't trying to make it a big scene. I was just simply asking you to go let the dog out, and you threw a fit. So I'm not saying I am not in the wrong, but I'm not saying like you're in the right either. And I was like, from now on, if you're going to tell me that you're going to do something, you need to follow through and do it. Like,
Yeah.
don't ever do that again. Don't tell me, say, I will do this, and then not follow through with it and tell me I'm overreacting.
Yeah. Well,
So
I mean, on the realm of manipulation that Sam had just talked about, I don't know if you realize this, but something that I have heard in pretty much every single story that you've told us so far is him telling you that you're overreacting in pretty much every situation. So that is a form of gaslighting, him saying like, "Oh, well, your feelings, you're upset about this situation. You're just trying to portray your feelings. Well, you're overreacting. I didn't do anything wrong. If you're upset, it's a you problem, and you did this and you did that, just always turning it back around on you, and then using that gaslighting of, no, you're overreacting." And also, this is just a personal opinion, but you don't have to necessarily apologize because you did something wrong. Like, there have been multiple times when I feel like what I have said or what I have done, I don't necessarily feel bad about it. However, I do feel bad that my words or my actions hurt somebody else. So, for him saying, I don't have to apologize because I didn't do anything wrong, maybe you didn't do anything wrong, but what you did do was very hurtful. And somebody who is saying that they love you and somebody who, is supposed to love you, they should care about your feelings and if you are feeling hurt by something that he did or said. So that's just personal opinion. I mean, that's not God or anything, but
Yeah.
sounds God to me. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, and it's interesting to hear you, and even when it was happening, right? It's very interesting. He would call me and be like, "By the way, I'm really frustrated. Billy is we're in this big we just got done with the fight and I need some advice. How do I help this situation?" And I'd be like, "Oh yeah, of course, tell me the situation." Well, we got in a fight. He didn't take out the dog. Um, very normal fights. Okay, great. And then I confronted him about it and said, "This is how it made me feel, or maybe let's work on it." And then he called me crazy and left the room. Or now he's out on a drive and he said he'll talk to me later. And I was like, Okay. All right. Again, like we can benefit of the doubt. Like you could just be a shitty boyfriend. Doesn't mean you're emotionally abusive. All right. So not a great boyfriend, being shitty, you're getting in a fight, but the consistency of it. It was every single time I feel like you called me or every single time, even I witnessed it a couple of times by watching him talk to you and you would say, "Oh, I'm really uncomfortable with that," or maybe not right now, and he would just roll his eyes and be like, "Oh, isn't Morgan so dramatic? Like isn't she just you overreact about everything." And it's like,
Yeah.
And just those, I think it's so hard for people to understand that those little quips built up over so long, especially when you start to see them say it to their partner in public. When I saw him start to say things like that to you in front of me, it made me concerned about things that he was saying to you when you weren't in front of us. And so, can
Right.
you use maybe like specific examples or language of like what did he specifically say to you at any time of being very manipulative, calling you crazy, calling you dramatic, overreacting? Is there any other things that he would say when you said like, "Hey, you made me feel this way"?
Yeah, so there was this one time we were at work. Again, we worked together at that time, and it had been happening for a little bit. He would make jokes about how I was dumb and about how I couldn't do anything for myself because I didn't have a brain and the inside of my head was hollow. Um,
Wait, he said
He
that, I'm
said
sorry,
what?
in front of your coworkers?
in front of everyone. He said it in front of our grandparents.
I'm gonna
He said
cry.
it in front of our
He
mom and
never
dad.
said
He
that in
said it in
front of
front of
me.
He said I'm oh my God. He said I'm sorry. I try not to cut people off, but that hit me.
good.
He said your head was hollow,
Yeah, he would
and
come over and like knock on my head and be like, "Oh, it sounds pretty hollow to me."
How did I never kick this kid's ass?
You moved. You moved before he moved down.
That's true.
you
That's true. But if I would have known, like, really what was going on at the time, because a lot of these things we kind of started to, like, you started to tell us about near the end, and then you guys broke up, and I feel like it wasn't until after you guys broke up that I really got an idea of, like, how bad it really was. But oh my God, if
Yeah.
I would have known, I would have kicked his ass.
So, I'm sorry. We interrupted you, but shooketh we are. Um
Yes,
you
please
said
continue.
yes, you're at work in front of your coworkers and he called you dumb in front of everybody. Then what happened?
Um, at that time, I didn't really want to make it a big deal in front of everyone, and we had customers in the store. I didn't want to start a big fight and get someone else in further trouble. So I let it slide until we were a little less busy. And I went up to him and I said, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" And he's like, "Yeah, what's up?" So I told him, "I don't like it when you call me dumb, whether we are in public or in private. I don't like it. I don't call you dumb ever, and it's hurtful. Coming up and knocking on my head, saying, 'Oh, that head is hollow. Wonder where your thoughts are coming from,' or blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, "Please don't." And he started getting defensive, and he was like, "Oh, it was just a joke. You don't need to," I hate to use this word again, but "you don't need to be so dramatic. Like you're
Well, is that
overreacting, you're
words that
causing a big scene."
yeah, he was using those words dramatic over dramatic? Mhm.
Yeah. And I was like, "I'm not trying to cause a big scene. Like I definitely could have made it a big scene, but I'm talking to you quietly and where no one else is around. Like you're the one shouting and you're the one making a big scene." Like, I'm trying to make it as private as possible, and we can have a further conversation when we get home, but I'm just telling you right now, I did not like it.
Yeah.
And kind of at that time, this was in the beginning of probably March. He honestly just stood up, stormed off, was stomping his feet, and we ignored each other for the rest of the night that we were at work. And we were closing, so it was only 7 o'clock, and we didn't get off until after midnight. So we still had 4 hours to go. We didn't talk to each other really at all the rest of the night. And then, since we worked pretty much the same shifts and his car sucked, I would drive both of us to and from work. And after we got in the car, we're both overstimulated. We're both overwhelmed. So we got back to my apartment, decompressed, calmed down, ate some food, and was like, hey, can we talk about what happened earlier? And I never got an apology from him out of the year and a half that we were together. I don't remember a single apology that came from him. I apologized a lot. And it got to a point where he would freak out and just kind of gaslight me again and manipulate it and turn it back on me to where it was all my fault. And at that time, I didn't realize it was abuse or anything like that. So I kind of understood where he was coming from. He engraved into my brain that I was doing everything wrong, and he turned it back on me. So I apologized for me just being human and trying to talk out my feelings. And I'd be like, I'm sorry, that was wrong. When what I now realize, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not going over there knocking on his head. And this would happen a lot. It happened a few times after I talked to him. And again, like, it would be in the middle of rush, so I would wait. And at one point, he got upset because I didn't talk to him right away, right after it happened. Instead, I waited until a little bit later was a little bit less overwhelming to talk to him. And so he was like, you need to talk to me as soon as it happens, or else I can't do anything to fix it. And I'm like, you can't fix the past, but no matter what time I talk to you, you can fix it going forward.
Exactly.
Like, you can hold yourself accountable to your actions and apologize. That's the most you can do. What happened, happened. But he just kept getting upset about me not talking to him right away. So I started talking to him right away again. And then he got upset that I talked to him while we were busy. So I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do? I talked to you when we weren't busy. I talked to you when we were busy. Like, is there a middle to that I'm
Right.
missing?
So he'd call you dumb in front of customers, coworkers, people, and you would say, hey, that hurts my feelings. Please don't do that. And he would call you dramatic and get mad at you to the point that you would be like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring it up. Like, is that correct? That's how that happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is what we call emotional abuse.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's really, really hard. And also it's really frustrating too because it can seem so simple. And I think when you're going through it, you're just like, no, I'm just trying to make things work. And in that same study, like Joe talked about earlier, being like 48% of men and 48% of women, basically half of men and women in the United States have both reported feeling or both reported experiencing emotional abuse in their relationships. And it can just feel so common and so almost just like, well, are they just being shitty? Or am I really the problem? Are they really the problem? Like what's happening? And that constant questioning of yourself puts you into a state where you're like, I don't know if I'm safe ever. Like, am I going to come around the corner and is he going to call me dumb? Am I going to come around the corner? Is he going to say something like he's going to knock on my head? And those small comments building up over time, the same study said that the emotional abuse can actually cause PTSD to the same level and if not more than people who experienced physical abuse. Like people who experienced emotional abuse actually report feeling symptoms of post traumatic stress later in after the relationship is over because they're still constantly worried about, am I going to walk into a room and be called dumb? And for someone who hasn't experienced that over and over and over and over again with someone they are intimately involved with, it can seem like, okay, well, it's not that big of a deal. But it feels like a big deal, right? Can you tell us how, when you were going through that, how it made you feel? Like when he would knock on your head and call you dumb? In your own words, how did that make you feel?
I kind of, during that time we were in public, I kind of just play along so it didn't cause a big scene. And I would talk to him later about it. But on the inside, it hurt. Like I was on the verge of crying. I was on the verge of having a little meltdown, crash out, whatever you want to call it. But again, we were at work and I didn't feel like it was very professional to cry during that. And after a little bit of this, I started having seizures due to traumatic events, me being traumatized by this, and little things triggered me, sent me into a panic attack, and then that would lead into a seizure. And I had one while I was at work, and at that time, I can't talk, my jaw's locked. And so I would type it out on my phone, and I was up next for a delivery because we have a screen that whoever was in for delivery last is the last on the list. And I was up, and my delivery was coming out of the oven. And I texted him and I said, hey, I am not in a good mental state to drive right now. If I start driving, I will pass out and I will probably crash my car. Like, for my safety, can I skip these next few deliveries until I can be mentally okay enough to drive and come out of the seizure a little bit to give my body time to relax and to decompress for a minute in the back? Like, I won't be around any customers. I won't have any customers seeing me. And if I need to message our boss, I can. Like, he already knows about these attacks. Um, and at that time, he was fine with it. But later that night, we were closing together again. And after 10 p.m., it's just a manager and a driver that closes. So from 10 until the time we get all of our stuff done and leave, we were alone. But during that time, he thought I was faking it. He thought I was just trying to get out of work and trying to get attention. And he told me, he's like, I'm not going to let you skip any more deliveries after this because you were obviously faking it. And I don't remember the reasons, but he's like, here's these reasons, this, and this. And I was like, I wasn't faking it. Like, one of our coworkers came over, saw me white as a ghost. My lips had lost color. They were white. And he just kept asking, is she okay? Do I need to call 911? Do I need to get the general manager in the store? And he's like, no, this happens all the time. And that other coworker, it's kind of hard to say, but it seemed like he was more worried about me than Billy. And that hurt as well. Like, you would think the other coworker would be like, okay, whatever. And Billy would be like, let's get you home. Let's send you home and I'll find someone to cover your shit. But it wasn't.
That's really hard. I'm sorry. I know that you had mentioned to both Sam and I at one point as well of different times when you guys were at work and you guys would get into a fight or, whatever before work, during work, whatever. And he would start to give you the silent treatment, even at work where he's supposed to be your manager. And you would go up and try to talk to him about something for work, and he would just walk away and not speak to you. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I have a hard time talking to people that I just barely met. I have a hard time making new friends. And so when I first started, we both ignored each other just because we were worried about getting in trouble. But after a while, we warmed up and we were fine. But he would, I would tell him, like, hey, I'm feeling kind of sad. I want someone to chat with while I cut this pizza. Can you come chat with me? He would say, yeah, let me finish this and then I'll be over. And he would never come over. Or I'd tell him, like, hey, I've been missing you. I haven't seen you all day while I'm doing these dishes since you're off the clock. Can you come and chat with me while I finish up these dishes and then we can go home? And he would be like, yeah, let me go do this first and I'll come back. There was always that excuse of something that had to come up so he wouldn't have to come back and visit. And then every time you'd see me trying to look for him, being like, hey, where are you? You told me you'd come visit. What are you doing? He'd immediately turn around, walk the other way, and try to avoid me at all costs. And at one point, I got upset at him about that. I was like, hey, not really upset. I was just trying to talk to him about it. And I was like, I feel like there's always an excuse of reasons why you don't want to hang out with me, reasons why you don't want to talk to me. Like, what's going on? Did I do something to upset you? Is something else going on that you need to talk about? Like, is there something you need to get out of your head? Something you need to just rant? And he's like, no, everything's fine. I'm like, okay, then why is this happening? Maybe there's something I don't understand, and I'm hoping you can help me understand this. And he would just raise his voice, be like, Morgan, nothing's wrong. Can't you just take no for an answer? And I'm like, you're saying that nothing is wrong, but I can tell by your body language, by the way you speak to me, by the way you talk to other people, something is wrong. And I'm worried about you. I want to make sure you're okay. That being like, nothing's wrong, just leave me alone. And so I was like, okay, I'll leave you alone. When you're ready to talk about it, we can. And we eventually worked it out. He was like, okay, fine, I will agree to talk to you more instead of just avoiding you. And so I was like, all right. So a few days later, we were at work. He was off the clock. I was in the back doing dishes. I was one of the only drivers that would do dishes. So a lot of the time there was a lot. So I'd be in the back doing dishes and he would come back asking me how I was doing. I was like, I'm good. Do you want to chat for a minute? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, all right, can you come chat? And he's like, yeah, just give me 1 second. I need to go do this. I'll be right back. And I was like, are you actually going to come back? Because in the past you haven't. And he's like, yeah, I'll come back. So he came back. And then like a few minutes later, someone asked him for help. And he's like, okay, I'll be right back. And I was like, all right. And 20 minutes later, I had just finished dishes. I went up there. He was sitting in the lobby on his phone. I got permission to leave. So I went and grabbed my stuff, got clocked out. And I went and talked to him. I said, you said you were going to come back. He's like, oh, sorry, I just didn't feel like it. And I was like, didn't feel like coming to talk to me? He was like, yeah, I just didn't want to be around you. And I was like, why? And he was like, well, the way you acted today because you're so energetic, it kind of humiliated me. And I felt ashamed to be around you. And that hurt. Like, we didn't talk for a few days after that. I told him, I said, I need some time. Like, I will tell you when I am ready, and if you're not quite ready at that time, then that's fine. But I need time.
So, yeah, with him saying, like, I didn't want to come back and talk to you because because you made me feel a certain way because you embarrassed me today. So I didn't talk to you. That's another example, right, of a list of things that a criteria of what emotional abuse is hostile withdrawal. You know, withholding your affection or refusing to speak to you as a form of punishment. And yeah, so that's what was happening, right? When you said that he would walk towards you or you would walk towards him at work and he would be talking to other coworkers and you would try to talk to him and you said he would like turn and walk away from you, right? Is that what happened?
Yeah, he was acting like I was like infected with the plague, and we were just playing like tag, and he treated it like a game when I told him previously I didn't like that.
Hmm. Were there any times that you felt like he um like withdrew his affection, you know, refused to speak to you as a form of punishment, but used maybe technology to do that? Like, did he ever block your phone calls or block you on any social media or anything like that?
There was a time where he threatened to block me. It was actually a few days before we broke up. I was watching your dogs, Joe, and I felt really lonely. Everyone was busy, and he it was like 10:30 in the morning and he was still asleep, and he went to bed early last night. So I was like, I'm bored. I'm lonely. I want to talk to you. I miss you. Like, I haven't seen you in 3, 4 days. So I FaceTimed him and I woke him up, and he was pretty distant. And the night before, he had talked to his mom on the phone for over 2 hours. And apparently, I came up in that conversation. I don't know what happened. I don't know what they were talking about. He was very distant with me at that time. He just kind of brushed the surface. He's like, yeah, the conversation was good. And he's like, yeah, we just talked about life. I asked him that morning, I was like, can we just talk and hang out? Like, I'm lonely. I miss you and I just want to talk. And he's like, yeah, we can. So we started talking, and his sister called, and he's like, hey, my sister's calling. And you guys know I don't like it when I'm on the phone with someone and they're like, oh, this person's calling, let me call you back. It just makes me feel like I'm not important. It just makes me feel like I'm always the last option to talk to. I feel like they don't actually want to talk to me. He got a call from his sister while we were on FaceTime, and I told him, like, we had that full disagreement of how I don't like it when he answers other phone calls when I'm on the phone with him. And he played that excuse of, oh, we're on the phone all the time. It's not that big of a deal. And I was like, it is a big deal. In my opinion, you can just say, hey, I'm on the phone. Can I call you back? Or if she's in trouble, then she'll tell you and then you can call her. But I didn't feel like it was very fair, just on my end, of him constantly saying, oh, let me call you back, or let me let you go, let me call you back. And half the time he wouldn't call me back. Um, and so he ended up just hanging up on me. We were still having a conversation. He just hung up on me, talked to his sister, and then he called me back and he goes, hey, I'm going over to my sister's to watch a movie with her and eat breakfast, so I gotta let you go. And I was like, we already had stuff planned. Like, he already told me we'd hang out. And he just freaked out, and I wasn't even saying anything. I was just crying because I was upset. I was sad. I felt like he didn't really care. And he yelled, um, Morgan, shut up, quit talking, and listen to me. And I I got scared, even though I wasn't really talking. And he's like, you were being over dramatic. You were overreacting. I need to be able to hang out with my sister, and you're not allowing me to do that. And I told him, I was like, normally I'd be fine with it. Like, I'm just asking. You can go hang out with her later. I'm just asking you talk to me for a little bit, and then you can go hang out with her. I'm sure your sister will understand. Neither of you work today, so that's not going to get in the way. And he ended up just continuing to get ready. He's like, no, I'm going to go hang out with my sister. And he was outside his sister's door, apartment door. And I was like, please just tell your sister, no, I don't want to be alone. And he's like, no, I'm still going to go hang out with her. If I see that you try texting or calling me while I'm in there, I will block you and I will not unblock you. And then he hung up and went in his sister's apartment. And, me being the quote unquote intimidating person that I am, I didn't message. I was scared. So I don't remember who I called, but I didn't feel comfortable being alone. So I called someone asking just to talk. Um, it was probably either you, Sam, or my mom. And he ended up calling me back when they got done. And I was going over to water some plants for Joe's cousin's mom. And he called me, and that was the first time he apologized. He was like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Can I make it up to you? And I was like, yeah, but again, that took a toll on our trust. I am not trying to do this in any mean way. It's just, I already have a hard time trusting people. And you kind of broke that trust and you said some pretty hurtful things.
Wow. Yeah, telling you to shut up and then telling you that if you try to contact him, he's going to block you. Saying that to you anyways is not okay, but especially if you're disclosing to him, hey, I'm not doing well. I just need somebody to talk to me. I don't know. That just is very hard to hear as somebody who loves you very dearly that he would say that. So another thing that I had thought of that we had talked about um was any time that you guys would get into an argument, and I only know vague details about some of these things, but I remember you bringing up one time that you guys had gotten into an argument and then he had threatened to harm himself or kill himself. Can you go into that?
Yeah, I honestly don't remember what the argument was about. I apologize. But we had an argument,
Doesn't matter
and
really.
yeah, we had an argument, and he was just like, if you leave me or if we break up, then I'm gonna kill myself. And he was just like, please don't break up with me so I don't have to kill myself. And I just, I was shocked, but at the same time, I was like, if something does come up, because we are in a very rough spot of our relationship or we have to take a break or if we have to break up, I still worry about you. Like at that time, I don't really care anymore. At the time, I was like, I still worry about you. I still wonder how your day's going when we don't talk for a day because we're busy or whatever. I still worry making sure you're still alive. And he would pull that card all the time. If you break up with me, I'm going to kill myself. If you leave me or if you block me or whatever. And so that was the biggest part of worrying about our breakup when we did ended up ending things due to all of our fights. And he, I'll tell the story in a minute, but he doesn't have the gut to tell me didn't have the gut to tell me he wanted to break up. His mom actually told me. So
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll definitely get into that as well because we want to talk about that as well. One more thing that I personally wanted to ask about is you had mentioned that you guys would get into arguments and he would leave the room and would say, "If I don't leave, I'm gonna hurt you." And then you mentioned that he had pushed you at one point. Um, did he ever throw things like near you or hit the walls near you, anything like that that made you just generally fearing for your safety that he was going to hit you?
yeah, there was one time, it was actually that same day that he said, it's either I walk out of the room or I hurt you. He got upset, and as he was leaving the room, he chucked his phone. Um, it smacked my bedroom wall, rattled the entire apartment, and then he slammed my door shut. All of my wall decorations by my door fell off. A few of them broke, and I was worried about a hole being in the wall. And so I made sure that there wasn't a hole in the wall, made sure his phone wasn't broken. I set his phone down back on the bed, moved my bed, made sure everything was fine, and I followed him out. And he had slammed the main door shut. And so I followed him outside, and he just sat outside my apartment door. And I said, "Please come back in. We need to talk about this." And he's like, "No, leave me alone." He turns around and smacks his head against the wall. It's a concrete wall, and that wasn't the first time he's done it. He would
His head,
smack his head against the wall,
like headbutting
yeah,
it
like
like
his
like
forehead.
this?
Yeah.
No wonder he's
Okay.
so dumb.
He would he would take his head, fling it back, and then whack it against the wall. He has done it a few times. He also, during that time, he took my curtain rod off from my closet because my closet didn't have a door, and he would start hitting himself with it. And I needed space. I needed my alone time, so I went in the bathroom and I heard him banging stuff in my room. So I came out of the bathroom and he was hitting himself in the head with the curtain.
Why was he doing? Was that in response to if you leave me alone, I'm gonna hit myself with your curtain rod?
Um,
Or was that
maybe.
like a separate issue?
He kind of, from what I got out of it, he was just like attention seeking. I know he says the same thing about me, but he was doing it to get a reaction out of me just so he could get upset at me over something else.
So was this a form of like, I'm gonna harm myself to get a reaction, or is this a form of I'm gonna harm myself so I don't harm you?
Harm himself to get a reaction.
Hmm.
Hmm. So using threats, like we said of intimidation earlier, using threats of physical harm to himself, to you, destroying property, and generally creating a fearful environment. So that would be a good example of that, right? Where you came outside, he was hitting his head against the wall. And what did he say at that point?
Um, he just said to leave him alone. And that was right after he said, "I either walk out of the room or I hurt you." And so I was worried if I didn't leave him alone, I was going to be the one getting hurt. And again, I didn't want him hurting himself. So I got him to stop hitting himself against, like hitting his head against the wall. And then I went inside. And with my apartment, it was like a hotel where it only unlocks just long enough for you to get inside and it locks again. So I thought about locking him out, but I didn't. I was nice. So I put the deadbolt on and I cracked the door so he could get back in. And then I went in my room and I shut my door and I just curled up in a ball by my closet because I was scared. I didn't know what to do, and I just started crying. I didn't know if I needed to end things, if I needed to get the cops involved.
And things
There,
like end the relationship.
yeah,
Okay.
I didn't know if I needed to take him home, and I needed to go to one of my sisters just for, some comfort. I think we ended up just leaving it at that, and I ended up having to work later that day, so I ended up talking to you about it, Sam. And that was one of the days where I started crying at work. And I told my coworker that we had a family emergency because I was crying in front of him when I'm not telling him that Billy and I had a fight. And so you told me I needed to talk to him about it. And that was when I realized this is an abusive relationship. That was when I realized we need to get something worked out, or we need to end things, probably end things, and just for my safety. This is not an okay relationship. So I went home and I talked to him about it, and we kind of talked about things that made each other upset. He went first, and then I started, and I told him, I was like, what you said of it's either I walk out of this room or I hurt you, I found out that that usually means that you've thought about hurting me in the past. And is that true? And from what I remember, he just quickly changed the subject, didn't really answer it, but I was like, that is not okay to do. That is not okay to say to anyone. And you need to stop hurting yourself, banging your head against the wall, saying those things, because it's not good for either of us. And our relationship is getting very toxic. It is turning into an abusive relationship, and we need to work this out before it gets worse, or we're going to have to work out our relationship, whether or not we keep going at this. And we ended up talking, and we ended up deciding to stay in that relationship at that time.
That's, I think, really
Okay.
telling, right? If someone said to me, "Have you ever thought about hurting me?" and I changed the subject, I would say, "Oh my gosh, no. I didn't mean it like that." So, especially where
Yeah.
he was already gaslighting you with other things, I think to me, that's very telling, right? Of saying, "Hey, you said if you were either going to leave or you were going to hurt me, does that mean that you've thought about hurting me before?" And then he just changes the subject. Seems seems like you
Sus.
kind of have the answer, right? Sus. Seems like you kind of have the answer to your question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, that I just don't understand how I never kicked this kid's ass. Apparently I wasn't paying attention, but
I give you permission now. Just don't give my location.
I just show up in a ski mask.
Do it.
um
I dare you. Just kidding. Maybe not. Don't go to jail.
yeah, so one thing that we saw as your sisters, just outside observers, is that when you were going through this, you had started to go to therapy, um, and you had mentioned one time that he was coming with you to your therapy sessions. Was that something that you had asked him to do? Because it wasn't just it wasn't like couples therapy, it was your own personal therapy, right? So
Yeah.
is that something that you had asked him to be a part of, or did he force himself into your sessions?
Um, it kind of started out because when I started having the seizures, which I later discovered was post-traumatic, uh,
Like stress.
non-epileptic seizures. Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah. Um, and I asked him because I couldn't remember much from my seizures. Like, I don't remember anything. So I asked him to come just to kind of help explain, and asked our other sister to come and help explain for a different session. And after that, Like, I asked him to go to a couple other ones, but all the other ones, he just kind of, after a while, assumed that he was going. And it kind of made me not comfortable to open up as much anymore because he was there, because I couldn't talk to my therapist about what was going on between us, because then who knows what he would have done. But based off of his history, it would have turned into a gaslighting and possibly physical violence.
Right. So it started out that you had asked him to come, and then eventually it was just an expectation that he was going to be there. Okay.
So, oh, sorry, were you going to say something?
Um, at one point, my therapist did ask if we wanted to do couples therapy, and I was like, let's talk about it, because I couldn't afford to do it, just me paying for it. And I was like, would you be willing to split the cost? And he never was. And I was like, okay. And he was like, well, can't you just pay for it? And I was like, no, I can pay for my half, but you still need to pay for your half. And that wasn't the only time that he's done that. Like, there was a couple other times where we'd go to the store, and since we basically spent any minute we could together, we did our grocery shopping together, and I'd ask him, can you pay for half? Because I can't afford, as a college student, to pay for two people's groceries. And every single time, he would conveniently forget his wallet. So every single time, I'd have to pay for it, and he's like, oh, I'll pay you back, I'll pay you back. Never got paid back. Still to this day, but I'm not reaching out. Heck no.
Here's my
Yeah, that
grocery
money's
bill.
gone.
Yeah. So let's talk about his family too, and the dynamic that they played in the end of your relationship. Like you had mentioned a couple of times, right, that there was some negativity throughout the relationship with his mom and his sister, just how they treated you and things that they blamed you for. But now let's kind of swing to the end of the relationship. Talk to us about how that relationship ended and then how his family played a part in that ending and right after.
Well, kind of as I mentioned previously before, he didn't have the guts to tell me he wanted to break up. His mom ended up telling me. So the story behind that is I was on the phone with him. Uh, his sister called. He didn't even ask if he could take his sister's call really quick. He just hung up immediately, took his sister's call, called me back. He's like, hey, my parents are at my door. And this is still, I was watching Joe's dogs. And he's like, I gotta let you go. And this was the day after him and his mom had that 2 hour long conversation. And he never told me this, but I think they were talking about planning on having a breakup with me. And I'll kind of explain that in just a second. But he let me go, and I was confused. He didn't tell me anything. He's just like, my parents are here, I gotta go. Click. So I called him back, just trying to get some more information. He sent me the voicemail, and then he texted me in all caps, Morgan, shut up, I can't talk right now. And he says, if you call or text me again, I will block you. And he goes, I can't talk right now. My parents are here. I will talk to you later. And I was, like I said, I was confused. I was upset. I was kind of sad. I felt lonely. And I tried calling him. I tried texting him. He didn't answer, so I just let it be. I gave it maybe like 2 more hours, and I tried calling him again, and he didn't answer. And maybe 5 minutes later, he called me. So I was like, hello? And he's like, hey. And I was like, why have you been ignoring my calls? Can you please tell me what's going on? Like, are you okay? And it got silent for a second. And then his mom came on the phone. And his mom was like, hey, Morgan, this is Billy's mom. How are you? And I was already crying her. And I was like, well, I'm okay, considering. How are you, I guess? And she was like, I'm good. And I don't remember exactly how the conversation went, but basically she just mentioned that they picked Billy up and they were on their way back home in Idaho. And I was not allowed to contact him. I was not allowed to do any of that. And she said if I ever tried contacting Billy again, then she would block me. And she's like, if you ever talk to him about your personal health or about your mental health or suicidal thoughts, I'm gonna call the cops, have them put you in a mental facility and not let you out. It's like, I will make sure they don't let you out, and I will make sure that you don't have any contact with anyone. And
Yeah, you don't have the
she was
power to
just,
do that, bitch.
she was just like, um, I will be taking Billy's phone, and if you try to contact him, then I will be getting a restraining order against you. And I was like, well, can I at least tell him good night every night? And she goes, I don't even think you're allowed to do that. It's like, it's best for both of your guys' health to just focus on yourself and let each other be. And we will reevaluate in a few days. He's going to come spend a few days up here with us. We will see if he's going to move back down or not. And then she hung up and that call ended. And what I got from that was just, he doesn't have the gut to tell me anything. So we ended up talking about it that night. I was on the phone with a friend because I was having some suicidal thoughts while I was still alone watching my sister's dogs. And I was like, hey, can you talk for a minute? And she's like, yeah, of course. He's like, all right, let me get my stuff, tell my mom where I'm going, and then I'll call you back. And I was like, okay. So as she was getting her stuff, Billy called. And I was like, hey, what's going on? And he's like, if my mom comes in, I have to hang up the phone because I'm not allowed to talk to you right now. And I was like,
Because I'm not a big
Billy,
boy who can make my own decisions, and I have to have my mommy tell me what I
yeah,
can and can't do.
exactly. But I was like, Billy, you are an adult. Like, you are 20 years old. You should not be hiding anything from your mom. You should not be ashamed of talking to anybody, especially your girlfriend. Um, and we ended up talking about what happened, and I was like, well, based off of, like, I was like, why didn't you stand up for me? I was like, why did you give your mom the phone? And he was like, I didn't know how to tell you. I was afraid that to make you upset. And I was like, so you think that giving your mom the phone would not make me upset? He goes, well, I didn't say that. And I'm like, you kind of did, but why? Like, why? He's like, I already told you why. And I was like, okay, whatever. And I was like, well, why didn't you stand up for me when your mom said those things to me? And he said, because I thought they were true. And at that point, I was done. Like, my friend had already tried calling me twice. I was like, okay, I gotta go. I need some time. I understand we're both still upset at each other, but I need some time and I have a friend calling me. So I gotta go. And my friend came and she stayed the night. The next day, I tried calling him to break up and he didn't answer. And he sent in all caps again, Morgan, I can't talk right now. So I sent him a text. I said, I don't think this relationship is going to work anymore. Would you rather have this conversation over phone call or text? And at that point, he was like, I will call in a minute. And I didn't tell him this, but on the inside, I was like, so the only reason that you're wanting to talk to me is because I'm wanting to break up? Like, that's the only way I can get you to talk to me at this point? Like, what the heck? And I had my mom on the phone, my friend there. I was like, I'm scared. It was either my mom or you, Sam. I don't remember. And they were like, well, you can cry all you want after, but just try to be strong. You tell him, you be stern. You don't give in to anything he has to say. You tell him you're done. You tell him what's going to happen with all this stuff at your apartment, and you end things. And then you block him immediately after. And so he called, and he's like, hey, what's going on? And I told him, I was like, I don't think this relationship is going to go any further. I was like, I already have my opinion, but what do you think is best for us? And he is like, well, why don't we just take a break for a few months, not contact each other, and then we can reevaluate in August. And this time it was May, so it was the entire summer. And I was like, well, I don't think that's a great option. I've given you plenty of chances. You just kind of took advantage of me. You turned physically and emotionally abusive, and you hurt me. Not even just in this whole entire relationship, but everything you've done in the past 3 days hurt more than anything else. And I honestly, based off of what your mom said, it seems to me like you're lying to me about other things. Because everything that your mom said, when I would ask you, are you happy with our relationship? You would always say yes. I would be like, is there anything you want to change with our relationship? And you'd always say no. But all that stuff, based off what his mom said, is a lie. And I was like, I don't think I can trust you anymore. You hurt me. And I don't want to see you ever again. When I get back into town, I will pack your stuff up and I will leave it outside, and it's your responsibility to come and get it. And if it gets stolen, that's on you. I've warned you. We're done. And he's like, okay. And I was like, all right, goodbye. And he said, bye, I love you. And I immediately hung up the phone. And
I love you. Hmm.
after I hung up the phone, I said, no, you don't.
Hmm.
But I started crying immediately after, and then I realized he had his violin and a bunch of expensive stuff that I would not want stolen. So I eventually made arrangements to have him come pick it up, and he didn't show up. It was his sister, his sister's boyfriend, and someone else. I don't know who. They came and picked it up, and that was that. And then about a month ago, I get a random phone call. It was an unknown number that I didn't know. I answered it. I said hello. And I hear this voice saying, hey, Morgan, it's Billy's mom. How are you? And I was like, I'm not doing this again. I just said, why are you calling me? And she started talking. She wasn't really talking. She was yelling. She was just like, I'm so disappointed in you. Like, you shouldn't have broken up with Billy. Like, you should be ashamed of yourself. And at this point, I'm not doing this again. It's not my first rodeo. This is the third time you've told me this. So I immediately hung up and I blocked her. But based off of what Sam, our mom, and I were kind of talking about, we think that Billy tried reaching out, couldn't get a hold of me because blocked. So he told his mommy, because he doesn't have a pair of balls. And she said, no, no one ignores my baby. So she tried calling me. I have her number blocked as well. So she used his stepdad's phone to call me because I didn't have his number. Not confirmed, but that's just what I feel.
Well, she used a
And
different
I think
phone, right? No matter
she used
whose it
someone's
was.
phone.
Yeah, she couldn't get a hold of
Yeah.
you on her phone, so she went out of her way to find a different phone just so she could call
Which
you.
is funny because she threatened to have a restraining order and have you locked away in a mental facility. But then all of a sudden she's so disappointed that you broke excuse me, that you broke up with her son.
She instigated us breaking up.
Yeah, sounds like the psycho doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah. Well, and then
Um,
I also real quick want to talk about something that you had said. You mentioned that he threatened he would if you leave me, I'll kill myself. Um, and then you've brought it up a couple of times in this episode that you struggle with suicidality, right? You struggle with some suicidal thoughts and some depression. And wow, that sounded so some suicidal thoughts and some depression. Um,
No
just
biggie.
sprinkle it. Yeah, no big. We're just gonna no biggie. Just sprinkle a little bit of it in there. Um, and at the time that you guys broke up, I think I want to clarify a few things. Or really ask a question. He said throughout your relationship, if you break up with me, I'll kill myself. Did you ever say that to him?
no.
So you were struggling on the side with feeling suicidal. And he knew that we can't speak for what he thought inside his head. But on the outside, what that looks like is he knew that that was something that you could relate to, that you struggled with. And he used that as a way to control you. Well, you know what it's like to struggle with suicidal thoughts. So I'm going to tell you that if you leave, I'll kill myself. And now, fast forward, you're alone a few towns away near the end of your relationship. You guys are struggling. You've had fights. You realize you're in a coercive, controlling, abusive relationship. You're watching Joe's dogs and you're not feeling great. And so you call him and you're saying, hey, I'm not in a good spot. Can we talk? Can you just talk to me for a little bit? And he turns this into a whole thing. Oh my God, I gotta go hang out with my sister. You're controlling me. You're letting me not hang out with my family. Oh, my parents are now here. I'm leaving. I can't even talk to you. His mother gets on the phone and says, if you ever talk to my son about being suicidal again, I'll have you thrown in a mental institute. All this can seem very affronting, right? You're like, I'm trying to reach out and ask my boyfriend for help. And he turned it into a whole gaslit situation, threw his mom on the phone. And then a day later, when I said, I can't do this anymore, I need to break up with you. Oh, well, can we just take a break so I can have the summer to myself and then come back?
And by the way, I love you.
By the way, I love you.
No, he doesn't.
Right? No, you're right. He didn't. And I am proud of you for realizing that. And that's just a really hard situation to be in. And even furthermore, showing that manipulation and control went beyond just him, but also the people that he put in your life. That months later, his mom seeks out a phone that she knows you won't have the number to in order to contact you and tell you, how dare you break up with Billy. So how did all of this change the way that you saw yourself?
I definitely learned a lot of things from that relationship. I've learned what a not very healthy relationship looks like, and I learned what to look forward to when a toxic slash abusive relationship starts. Um, and at before this all started, I didn't realize that abusive relationship starts out with a push. I didn't realize that abusive relationship started out with verbal abuse or manipulation or anything like that. Um, I thought it was pretty instant. So it was not until April that I realized that it was an abusive relationship. So based off that, I consider myself way stronger than I was before, physically and emotionally. Like, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I feel like I've been a lot happier since we ended our relationship. I've been a lot more in contact with you guys since we ended it because Billy never really allowed me to contact you guys because he was jealous. Don't know why, but he was. And at that time, I really didn't tell anyone about anything other than you, Sam. I didn't really enjoy talking about it, but I allowed myself to heal. And I have gotten a lot better. And I have been able to make a lot more friends because I'm not in a relationship worrying about someone coming to hunt me down and put me in a mental facility. Um, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, that makes me so happy to hear, and I can confirm that I 100% feel like you seem a lot happier. And it almost seems like in the last few months, I mean, I know that at the right when your breakup happened, it was really tough for you. And I know that, I mean, you were sad, of course, because you just ended a relationship that even though this relationship was toxic and that the person that you were in the relationship with was hurting you, it's still somebody that at one point you did love, you did have these feelings for. And so of course you're going to be sad. Um but I feel like shortly after that, even when you were still sad, I felt like you were really finding yourself. And I think now you're still, at least from my perspective, you're still finding yourself and you're finding these things that you love and these little joys in life. And like I can't even express to you how happy that makes me as your older sister. So, yeah, just talking about the women that's sitting with us today, it seems like you're just so much happier. And you mentioned that you feel like you're a lot stronger now because of what you had gone through. So that's kind of what we like to talk about at the end of our end of our relationships, the end of our episodes.
And relationships.
I guess so. Yeah, the end of our episodes is resiliency and just being able to come back from those hardships. So, what does resiliency mean in your own words to you? And do you feel like you're a resilient person?
Some kind of synonyms that I would compare resilient to is just strong, empowering. Yeah, but I do definitely consider myself resilient after that relationship. Um, and even during it, I feel like if I wasn't resilient, I wouldn't have ended it, and who knows where I'd be now. And I definitely could not have done it alone. I definitely had the support from everyone I needed to get through it and to help me heal. And granted, I'm still healing now, but I am doing a lot better. And I am definitely in a happier state of mind now. I haven't had suicidal thoughts in months. And I am happy to be single. Don't have to worry about anyone else's feelings or thoughts. So that's great.
That is
That's so
nice.
good. Yeah, being single is fun.
So, does it make you feel worried about getting into a future relationship, knowing that someone hurt you the way that he did?
Yeah, I was actually talking to my mom about this today, and the biggest fear about getting into another relationship is trauma bonding to them. I don't want to trauma bond to my significant other. It's not healthy, and I don't want it. So that's kind of why I've given myself that time to heal, time for my body to give it a little reset before I start dating again. And like my mom was saying earlier, once I find the love of my life, I will then realize that this is a healthy relationship. Like this new one will be a healthy relationship. And this is what love feels like because I didn't get that from Billy.
Right.
Right.
So when you
And
say you're worried about trauma bonding, are you meaning like you're worried about being dependent on him, or what do you mean by trauma bonding?
Yeah, being dependent and kind of just starting to like act the way Billy did, starting to do the actions that Billy did and say the things that Billy did, even though none of it was okay, and knowing that I'm aware it wasn't okay.
Okay.
And maybe like going into, like you said, you were feeling suicidal at the time, and so that was something that he could use. So does that kind of go into what you mean too with trauma bonding? Like you don't want, if you're in a better position, you're not with him because he knows what it's like. You're with him because he knows what it's like to be happy.
Yeah,
And also, it's okay. I think it's a really healthy perspective. That's a good way to look at it. I know people want to jump right in and fix things eh, after you get out of a bad relationship, and oh, but focus on how good a relationship can be in the future. Forget about the past. It's not a big deal. And you're saying, no, I want to make sure that I'm healthy for me, so I can bring health into a relationship. And I think that's such a good way to look at it too, and the fact that you're not ignoring the pain that you've gone through. Because like if you shattered one of your femur bones, like someone wouldn't tell you to just forget about that pain and focus on the one that isn't shattered, right? The only way out of that
yeah,
pain is through it. So the pain that this relationship caused you is going to influence the way you look at your relationships moving forward. It just is. Like there's no way around that. The resilient
yeah,
part of that, the brave part, the healed part is knowing yourself. Like, I'm going to be a little bit scared going into a new relationship because of the way because of the way my first one turned out. Like, what if it breaks my heart again? Well, I'm going to do it anyway because what if it doesn't break this time? And I'm going to go into it in a much healthier atmosphere than I did the first time. And so you're not ignoring the broken
Exactly.
femur bone. You're addressing it. And you're like, I'm going to be, when I'm whole myself, I'm going to be able to enter another relationship. And I just think that's a really healthy perspective to be in. I'm really proud of you.
thank you. I also just kind of adding on to what you said, just finding myself, finding who I am, finding what I like, because I felt like I lost that during that relationship. Finding who I am physically, who I am mentally, and kind of giving myself a restart. Um, and with me moving again, I feel like that's also going to help give me a fresh restart and find my footsteps again. Because I felt like after that relationship, it kind of just knocked me over, knocked the wind out of me. So I need to get back up on my feet, get going again before I can get into another relationship.
Yeah. And I think that's great. I think that's great to focus on yourself because honestly, it's really hard to make a relationship work when you're still trying to figure yourself out, when you're still trying to heal yourself from whether it's a past relationship, whatever it is, something internally with yourself that you're dealing with, family, friends, relationships, whatever. It's really hard to come into a new relationship and make that work when you yourself are just not in a good place. So, I think taking the time to really heal yourself and really find what you love and find yourself and just taking the time to be you and just live your life and have fun. You don't have to be in a rush. You're young. Literally,
Yeah,
you have the rest of your life to be married and whatever you wanted to do, have kids or whatever it is that you want. So it's like there's no reason to rush into it.
yeah. And I agree. I've had other people that are like, well, you're running out of time. You need to get into another relationship. You need to get married and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't want to. Like, I understand that you are an older human being. That's what you did back in your day. But no, that's not what I want
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Seriously. Like, and I say this like not as a way to diminish you because sometimes I feel like this about me. I'm like, you're a baby. I'm like, I'm a baby. I'm just a baby. I can't
I just a
be.
Just
baby.
I'm
baby.
just a baby. Like, you have so much time to figure it out. I'm just a
You
baby.
really do.
Yeah,
You
you're
really do.
literally, you're just at the beginning. These are not even close to the best years of your life. So, yeah, which thank God. Like, if my like beginning of my 20s were the best years of my life, fuck me. Like, that was rough.
I feel
It,
that. The
it
early
gets
20s are
better.
rough.
Ugh, because you
That's
don't
where I'm at
have,
now.
yeah, you just don't have a gut to listen to yet. Like, you're too fucking skinny. Like, you haven't eaten enough
Well,
cheeseburgers and gotten, and I don't mean you specifically. I just mean like generally, like 20-year-olds, you haven't eaten enough cheeseburgers and fucked up enough in life yet. Like, don't worry, it
that's
gets
true.
better.
That's true.
Not enough
And
ketchup and peaches.
yeah. And the early 20s can be fun too. Like I did lots of partying. Lots of
Mhm.
partying. I had a lot of fun. But again, those still yeah, like that's not as good as it gets. So,
Yeah. So now to my favorite question. This is my favorite part of the whole episode. Um, to ask is my favorite part when we're done. No, just kidding. But it's my favorite part to ask this question. How do you feel now that you're done telling us your story?
Definitely not as nervous now. And I have a feeling that's what everyone says on the interviews. So I don't want to be the same person, but that's truly how I feel. Um, and if he sees it, he sees it. If he reaches out, guess another number is getting blocked. Um, but I do not wish to get in contact with them again. So sorry, Billy.
sorry Billy, it's
Sorry,
over.
Billy. It's over. Yeah, and that's why this is my favorite part because in the beginning, everyone is always like even if they say they're calm, they're a little bit nervous and you kind of have to draw a story out sometimes or sometimes, it's very quick and you got to calm them down. Like in the very beginning, people are always nervous. And I love seeing the transition of they're calming down, they're laughing with us, they're making jokes, and then by the end they're like, "Oh fuck that guy. Like thanks for letting me talk." And I love to see that in a 2-hour time span, you think people just change. And so that's my favorite part of the episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely took me a minute, but I warmed up quick.
It's
Yeah.
okay. That happens. I mean, sometimes it just takes a little bit more prompting and a little bit of help on our end, and that's why we're here. That's why we prep our interviews beforehand, so that way we can make this as comfortable of an experience as possible for you. So, do you feel like there was anything that you wanted to share that we didn't get to cover today?
I don't think so.
All right.
Right on.
Well, then we will end the episode with the same question we ask all of our guests. If you could write a letter to past you, what would you say?
Mainly just like I'm proud of you for everything that you've gone through. Um, I actually recently just wrote a letter to my future self. Well, not really recently. It was a couple months ago. And I told myself I'll open it in a year. So next September on my birthday, I'll be opening it. But um, just I'm proud of you, and no one's gonna hurt you like how Billy did ever again, or how whoever else may be hurting me. I will never let anything hurt you ever again, and I will be there for you, just like how you were there for your even younger self.
Oh, I love that.
Me too. No one else is going to hurt you like that again because I'm going to be here for you. I love that. I love that you're taking that, like, no, I will be there for you, Morgan. like Morgan. Future Morgan, present Morgan will be there for you. Past Morgan,
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
Yeah. Also, I really hope that you said a lot of kind things in your letter because that would be really sad if you opened it on your birthday and you were just like, listen here, bitch.
Your bitch life sucks, and I hope you got your shit together. Because if it still looks like this in a year, we got problems. Yeah, I hope that was a nice letter.
Yeah,
That's
it
funny.
was. Started out nice, ended up nice. Don't remember what the middle was, but it was probably nice.
I'm sure it was nice in
You'll
there.
find out in a year.
I will.
That's funny. Well, thank you, Morgan, for coming on and sharing with us that beautiful transition and letting us know that you're here for you now and no one's going to hurt you like that again.
Yeah. And if anybody does, you better call me because I am overdue for some ass kicking.
Oh,
Yeah.
I definitely will.
Look, pregnant lady's got some feelings.
Yeah, I might not
Yeah.
be able to lift my leg up very high, but you know what? I can
You
lift it a
have the
little bit.
arms.
I can lift it a little bit.
I'll push him down to my level.
Step on you.
He's about that height, so it can't be too hard.
It's like, have you ever seen the movie Anastasia, the animated one?
No.
So the
When I
little
was
bat
very
comes
little.
in. This little bat comes in and he's like, and I'll give her a ha and a ha and a hi-ya and I kick her, sir. That's just what I was thinking. He's like this big. So
No.
I was thinking about you, Joe. Like,
Thank you. Thank you
I'll
for
kick her,
comparing me
sir.
to a rat.
He was a bat. You're
A
welcome.
bat, sorry.
You're welcome. Love you. Well, thanks again, Morgan, for coming on. And this is Project Tell Your Story, signing off.
Bye. If you or someone you know has been or is currently suffering from domestic abuse, please reach out to www.thehotline.org.
Project Tell Your Story is created and produced by your hosts, Sam and Joe. Music composed by Morgan Mold. Logo art by Jordan Dalton. Ready to share your story? For a chance to be featured on our podcast, please reach out to us. Send a brief summary of your story to contact.tellyourstories@gmail.com.